Hi, I'm Axel from FenceFast. I'd like to thank everybody that took part in our competition on Facebook this week and helped answer some of the questions we asked. We thought we'd come on and discuss some of those questions. So the first is going to be around Energizers. The question we had on was, tell us what was one factor you consider when buying an Energizer. One was distance. So let's talk a bit about distance. Basically, it comes down to how powerful the Energizer is, determines on how far you can pump that energy down the fence line. We base that in joules, which was also another factor a lot of people answered to the question as well. So a joule is a watt times time, and it's a method we use to kind of show horsepower of the Energizer for a layman's term. The bigger the horsepower, obviously, the farther that Energizer will carry, as well as the bigger the shock it'll give. My good rule of thumb, on average, I usually recommend 1 joule of Energizer for every mile of fence. Now, the exception to that would be if we're doing sheep or goats or animals like that, they're a little harder to shock. Deer as well. I would generally say you have to start out with a 3 joule and then go with your 1 joule per mile after that. Some things that can factor into that, though, is weed load. The higher the weed vegetation load I have on the fence, the more joules I'm going to need to help offset that. The other way around, though, too, if I'm out in very dry country, I'm going to be able to go further distance with that same Energizer. Another one on the list was power supply, solar versus battery versus plug-in. When it comes to cost per joule, plug-in Energizer is always your best bet. You're always going to get more bang for your dollar on a plug-in Energizer. Also, they're simpler. I mean, you just plug them in, more reliable. You don't have to worry about charging batteries or having enough sun to charge solar. Solar, on like a full built-in solar unit on the other end, is your most expensive on the Energizer side. You know, you're paying for the compactness and the convenience of making that system very portable. The downside we have to that here in Canada is often we don't get enough sunlight to operate year-round. So I generally say solar units are good for your grazing season, April till October in most parts of Canada. Outside of that, solar not always be reliable, or you need a lot more solar panel to keep those batteries charged. Another option, if you don't have plug-in power, is to go to a 12-volt deep cycle battery setup. We have a lot of Energizers now that are multi-powered. The majority of our battery ones are. That means you can hook them to a 12-volt battery and swap those batteries out every week or so. And again, it depends on the size of the battery and the size of the Energizer on how much power requirement is there. But it also gives you the option, if I am close to plug-in power, say for the winter, I can use that same 12-volt Energizer and plug it in with the adapter. So, that's something to factor in if you want to use that Energizer year-round and you're not going to always have plug-in. I would look at a multi-powered unit. One other thing lots of people overlook is, I only have 5 acres, and you're thinking, I need a portable Energizer. Well, possibly look at having a plug-in and running a lead-out wire down your existing fence to get power around where you might need it on the farm for rotational grazing factors. So that's something to look into as well. Other questions people asked was durability. The Energizers, all the Energizers we carry here at FenceFast all come with 2 to 3 year warranties. We don't bring in low quality Energizer. All our Energizers are better or best in the market, whether they're Gallagher at our upper end, Gallagher and Speedrite, Patriot, and some of the other brands that a little lower, little bit lower models than that, not quite as good on their fit and finish, but still good quality Energizers, for their price and value. And most of them are on the higher end are repairable. Some of the lower cost ones are just straight exchange over the counter. Remotes is a question we had. Some of our larger Energizers in our I-Series, the 1800s and bigger, all have remote capability with the I-Series remote. So if that is something you're looking at, you can go to that route. Those are 18 joule and bigger Energizers, so you're typically larger acreage. When it comes to Energizers, you can have too big. I mean, I don't need an 18 joule Energizer on 10 acres. It's going to be way more Energizer than I need. But the other side of that, though, too, is I can have too small of an Energizer. So if I think I'm going to have sheep and goats on my property at some point, I would suggest just going into that 3 joule Energizer range to begin with, not worrying about it. If I'm just going to have horses and cattle on my 5 to 10 acres, yeah, I can probably get away just with a 1 joule Energizer. You know, I don't need that extra power to educate horses and cows. They're a little easier to shock.